G'day and welcome back for more Survival Impossible. One of the things I've started to like about doing builds over multiple weeks is that I can take advantage of that extra time to come up with better ideas, better ways, better everything about it. And that's very, very true of the Forts Capac printer and the Forts Capac themselves. What I'm going to do is actually design a much better Fort Capac and then adapt the printer to that new design. And to do that, I'm going to hop in the absconder and head on down to the aerodrome. Something that's always a little bit sad is when I spend time designing buildings like this one here and don't actually have much reason to go inside and explore them and show them off in the future. So I've come up with a way to do that. I'm going to use this computer here to design a better Fort Capac. This is my blueprint for the current Fort Capac. It's got the tower with the turret and the battery down the bottom. It's got the tower with the turbine and the decoy in the middle. Those two, I'm happy with that separation. The turret is more important, so it needs to be separated from the decoy as far as possible. The turbine is less important, so it can be over the top of the decoy, and it needs to be separated from the turret anyway so that it can actually generate some power. The battery position is probably not ideal, and there are some things I'd like to add as functions to this. So let's get started. First off, I'm going to weld this whole thing up so that once we're done with the blueprint, we'll know exactly how it's going to look color-wise, and can then have it all nice and painted and pretty and good when I'm done, so that I can start printing these things off. Now that I've welded this up, I'm going to start by adjusting the stuff around the turret. I still feel like having this auto loading is going to be a bit too much work. I mean, I could put something like a collector on the outside here to try and see if that's going to be a way I could drop stuff down into it. But yeah, while I do like some aspects of that, I'm not sure I'm sold on it. The trouble is to have the collector pointing upward so that I could like fly over and just drop ammo into it. I would need to then have a conveyor running around the bottom, which increases the size of this build dramatically, and that's where I'm torn. I really do like the idea of this being able to be loaded that way, but equally I'm not sure I can make it work in an efficient manner. Although, now that I say that, what if I did this? Hang on. I'm going to get sidetracked for a second because I was saying no to this idea, but actually I might be able to make it work. I guess one option for trying to get the collector on here could be to do this. Let's put... Need to go cheaper. Keep cheap. Cheap. Cheap and cheerful. I put a pipe there, a junction there, and then could link these two parts with pipe, and then have a cross in the middle. Don't know how this is going to look. Cross in the middle like that, with a collector on top. Oh, I'm not sure I'm sold on this idea. Then I can put, say, instead of another pipe, I could put a thing like that. That is kind of cool, and it would be quite fun to fly along in the Panini, or fly along in something. Or even have a drivable vehicle that I drive up to the side and it has a little, kind of like a combine harvester that just ejects out ammo that drops into it. It does feel like this is going to add a fair bit of expense and fragility to this build though, because all of this stuff is going to require me to use up nickel and silicon as well. I mean, it's not cobalt, so that's not a big problem, but it does make it more expensive, and these are more fragile than those beam blocks. Nah, I'm gonna keep it back how it was. I'm gonna stick with something simple. I like the concept of dumping stuff into a collector because it's just kind of fun, but I think in this instance these things are meant to serve a proper defensive function, so I think they need to do that and do it properly. Something I was thinking about with this, and I'm not sure whether I can pull it off, is using blast doors for some of the protective armor around here. So the reason I use blast doors rather than heavy armor is heavy armor requires cobalt because it needs grids, whereas this just needs iron. And I've got plenty of iron from the launch air base, and I can send down more if I need it. The thing I'm not sure about is whether I am exposing too much of the base by putting a blast door corner there. Because obviously the blast door doesn't fully cover up the block that it's against. I mean, the corner inverted leaves a little bit less gap. Maybe that's an option. Looks kind of cool too. It's almost giving it shoulder pads. Oh, actually, I quite like this look. It's going to need to be in different colors. The orange does look funny in this blueprinting space, but we need to have a bit more variety of color here, but I kind of like that inverted corner up there. Makes it weigh a fair bit more, but it should protect that cargo container for longer. Then the other thing is, does that also mean that this link should be made out of blast doors? Probably not. Probably not. I don't think it's worth it. So the battery I placed on the outside, I think just because I was imagining this being built sort of in the ground, and I usually place the battery down first so that it's partially embedded in the voxel, but that's obviously not going to be the case here. So the battery... Those birds are so loud. The battery should be under here, right in the middle, as protected as it can be. Because it's now going to be surrounded by some programmable blocks and some other bits and pieces. Timer block there. I think I need 3 for the functions that I'm planning. Then I need a programmable block. And since I'm going to be printing this from the end, I could actually cover these things up, like so. I kind of like that with the half light arm panel covering over the bottom of the blast door block. Yeah, that works really nicely. I'm happy about that. So one of the things I can do here, I can do now that I'm going to be rotating this 90 degrees on the printer, is I can make this fit, like this just has to fit on the printer this way. So I can go quite a bit wider if I needed to. I could make the whole fort bigger. I don't think it's worth making it big enough to carry multiple turrets. I think it's better to keep it cheaper and build more of them so they're spread out than build a few expensive ones. If I was just going the few expensive ones, I'd go out and build custom buildings for each of these things. But that just doesn't... I don't think that makes sense here. The other thing I can do is I can put stairs here instead. I prefer the idea of having stairs on here because stairs still function once they've been shot. Ladders, because you have to grab and attach to them, do not. Something I wish Keen would do with the ladders is make their functional line right down the bottom. So that functional bit should be when it's in almost just the last little bit, so that it's only really non-functional when it's barely built. You're probably wondering at this point why I've built 3 timer blocks and a programmable block on here. The reason for that is that I want to set this up so that it can highlight when it's run out of ammo. I want to be able to know which ones out there have run out of ammunition, so I can go back and I can rearm just those ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a script on the programmable block which triggers those timer blocks. When they've been rearmed, it'll turn off the red lights. When it needs to be armed, there'll be a red light that glows around it to identify where it is. In the past, I've used scripts that broadcast those sorts of things over antennas. The reason I don't want to do that here is because I don't want to have my HUD look like Capax. I actually like to be able to see what's going on my HUD, so I don't want to have it cluttered up with all of the signals from all of the forts Capac, because it just gets overwhelming. So instead of that, we'll just have lights out there, so when I'm actively looking to see what needs to be rearmed, I can do that. Then we go with our magnetic plate under there, and I'll put one under here too. Now the last remaining thing I need to do is attach the linking piece. Quite a few people pointed out I don't need to have a full block as a linking piece. I can have something really a lot smaller and cheaper. So I feel like that's not the piece I want. I feel like a light armor panel slope which only costs 6 steel plate is the way to go. So that'll be my link piece. I hope I hope that where I put that will work. Otherwise I'm going to be coming back and doing more blueprinting. But it's on the block that is furthest along this direction. Let's set up this script. So we're going to use ufol's full inventory trigger script because this does exactly what I need it to do. And to set it up, I'm actually going to have self-updating set to false. I don't know if I'm correct on this, and hopefully you guys in the comments will let me know, but I don't want this updating every 100 ticks. What I'm going to do instead is set a timer up to trigger it every 5-10 minutes, because it doesn't need to be that often. It can be really rare, and I think, depending on the complexity of the script, having a bunch of timers running that only go off every 5-10 minutes is going to be less of an impact on my game than having the script running every 100 ticks. I think. I could be wrong, but I think that'll be right. So we're going to use the full trigger, we're going to use the empty trigger. The full trigger is actually going to only be at 1%, and the empty trigger is going to be at 0. Because what I'm going to do is timer block, I'm going to go armed, and timer block, it can actually stay empty. Armed and empty. And the cargo container we're going to use is not the cargo container. I need to just check what that turret is called. We're going to go Gatling turret. So we're just checking the turret, because the turret will pull automatically from the cargo in the cargo container. I'm not too fussed if the cargo container runs out. I know that there are benefits in rearming it before it gets completely out of ammo, but still, I think it's fine. So timer block empty, timer block armed, and timer block schedule. So the timer block schedule is going to be set to, that's an hour. Yeah, let's go every 5 minutes, 300 seconds. Set up actions. You are going to run, confirm, and you are going to start yourself. And that's it. That's all you're going to do. Timer block armed is going to need a light. Kind of covered everywhere up with plate. That's annoying. All right. The light will go here. That's the light we're going to work with. So timer block armed, setup actions will be out of ammo light toggle off. Empty, setup actions, toggle on. Easy. So now, if I run this programmable block, the light turns on. If I put some ammo into the turret, then we run this again, and the light goes off. So if it's got 1 case of ammo, it will automatically, on the next running of the script, will automatically turn the light off. If it's got no ammo, the next time the script will run, that light will turn on, which is exactly what I want. Cool. I am happy with that. This light is kind of my street light, so if I'm placing these down along a route that I'm going to drive, I want to make sure I've got this bright light at one end, and the turret can be at the darker end of the build. Last thing it needs is a paint job that makes it look less like a warning buoy thing and more like an actual thing. Oh, I kind of like that with the stripy. Does any of this look better with snowy, or am I just going to stick with rusty? No, it does not look better with snowy. You really have to pump up the saturation of stuff to make it show through the snow. The skybox here is probably having a negative impact on my snowy look too, because it makes the snow all look blue. The last thing I'm going to do before I go and add this to the projector is figure out how many components are required for it. And to do that, I'm going to do it the easy way. I'm going to use the projector to assemble a script, which needs me to just quickly replace the Capac decoy with a regular decoy. Rather than having to add in the modded block, I will just use the vanilla ones that are at hand and create a new blueprint. So this is the projector to LCD script by Juggernaut 93, and this whole mod compatibility thing, rather than doing all that, I figured I only had one modded block, I can just replace it with the vanilla. Heaps easier. So setup is not too complicated. Programmable block, projector, and up to 3 screens, text panels, etc. So now that I've got the projector set up and the wide LCD panels set up as my 2 arguments for my programmable block, because I don't need to worry about the other ones, it's all light armor, so it's fine. I just click run, and then we've got our components required over here. It's not 100% accurate because apparently the projector doesn't reveal to the script exactly what type of armor block is in a particular spot. So it's just assuming cubes for everything, which means the steel plate numbers are going to be higher than what are actually required. But there it is. That's a pretty good list. And that means I just need to make sure that my assembler production queue is set to at least double that. Blueprint done. Let's fix everything else up. Small steel tube is good, and steel plate. Yeah, I'm already producing well over what I require, which is good. All right, so I've checked through the full list, and everything is perfectly fine. I'm producing at least twice as many as is required for a single Ford Capac, which means I can print off 2 while waiting for the assembler to make more parts. And that should be enough. I don't think it makes sense to have that many components lying around that I could build even more than that. But now for the tricky part. What to do with this Ford Capac that is not set up correctly. Really don't want to have to grind it down, but I also don't want to have to do this script new. No! Why did I have to print this off? I think the only parts that are really wasteful on this, if I grind it down, are going to be that battery. That's it. Everything else is fine. Also, how am I going to get up there? And, oh, that's the other thing I need to do. Need to put a sensor on these welders before I start climbing around there and grinding stuff down. Something to turn them off
Fuel critical
when I get too close. So I don't make barbecued splitsy. So even though I'm going to be rotating things around, I think I'm going to keep this welding apparatus as it is. Again, a bit expensive to have to replace the whole thing, so it makes some sense to keep it. Detect players, yes. And then we need a group for the welders. So I can turn them all off. So on entry to the sensor field, we turn off, and on exit, we turn back on. Yay! No fried me! Hooray! Cool. Alright, I'm going to grind this thing down. I can't think of a better way to do this, and that way I can kind of just start fresh and not have to fiddle with making this one work when I've already got a blueprint that should work. I need to turn off all the welders because they'll fight against me. But I think this is the right thing to do. I'm also going to have to remove the projector. So what I was talking about at the end of the last video was rotating this 90 degrees and welding it lengthways. The piston for the welders is only going to get me 4 blocks in length, so I need to actually move both the welders and the projection to get the length I need in order to weld this whole thing up. So I'm going to have to remove the projector and put it in on pistons as well to get that full range of movement that I need.
Bull.
And to think, I had expected to be doing a time-lapse of me building these today, not tearing them apart. Last week when I was setting this up, I was planning on having the Ford Capac kind of sit loosely on a support once it was finished being welded. And that was because I didn't want the landing gear that are on the Ford Capac to lock to anything, because to unlock them I would have to manually go in and change it. I can't use any sort of remote access technique because this doesn't have an antenna, so I can't remote access it. And I then decided to stick it loose instead of attaching it to the base with the landing gear that's on the base, because I forgot about that being an option. This time, I've just built and unbuilt a whole bunch of stuff a bunch of times. You'll see it in the time lapse. To eventually come up with this. This hinge, piston, and mag lock are going to attach to that bridge once the Ford Capac is welded. They can then be locked to it, push it up just a little bit further, maybe, possibly, I'm not sure I'll be able to get that high with it, but still maybe able to get up a little bit. I can then, from the Panini's cockpit, go Shift K, access the base, find that mag lock, and unlock it. Which is good. Or eventually I could set up a programmable block to go through and do that automatically, but at least I can do it without having to get out of the seat of the panini, which is obviously not easy to do when it's flying, or impossible for me to do when it's flying if I want to survive. So this is my system, and I think it should work. I think I only need 2 buttons, and this is cheaper than the other one. So, reverse, reverse, and I don't need to touch that. So flip that out of the way, let's get rid of this ramp. I'll be able to adjust how far that goes back once I've got the building set up and as I start to finesse the printing method, but I figured for now, let's get it completely out of the way. Just test that all 3 of these pistons can go to their full extents in the opposite directions without running into anything. Looking good. Welders should be able to weld everything I need. Okay. Alright. I feel like I might have finally gotten somewhere today. And it's taken me a whole in-game day to get there.
Energy low.
Oh, I thought I was about to fall off then. Oh, that was a moment of true panic. Moment of truth. Welders. Oh, wait. Not quite moment of truth. Need to change the piston speeds. Projector pistons. Minus 0.025. The total speed will be 0.075, which is hopefully slow enough. Let's do this. Welders on. Retract and extend pistons. May not need to be this slow. But I would like to have this weld properly the first time. So I will be patient. Ish. The main thing I'm concerned... Oh, nope, never mind. I was about to say the main thing I'm concerned about is whether or not the turret will get printed, but it's already printed, so it's all good. Why isn't that blast door block being printed? Or those other things. Hang on. Oh no, it's coming now. Okay, phew. So it can certainly go a bit faster. An upshot of the missing bits in the welders is that they're able to catch stuff, some bits of it early, which is kind of nice. Because of the gaps in the welder wall, they can actually reach a few bits before they're outside the array, which is something I might need to keep in mind for future projection builds, is that there's potentially some advantages in having these gaps. With the right design, you could really take advantage of them. So these forts technically have 2 decoys in them. One decoy protected underneath the turret with the blast door blocks and everything, and the other decoy fairly exposed. I'm hoping that'll draw more fire from the enemy ships onto just one of these bases, so that the other bases that are within firing range of it can add their firepower and hopefully distract and destroy before getting to my base. So I think I've been having nightmares of that Reaver if it had have actually crashed down onto my base rather than just obliterating it from above. How much damage it could have done. For each print, I think I'll increase the speed a bit and until I seem to find that sweet spot, but I'll just do it very gradually. I don't want to end up accidentally half printing something and having to hand weld the whole thing. Why isn't that light welded? It got placed but didn't get finished. That's really annoying. That's really irritating. I think it might be just between the welders. And so small that they're not actually reaching to that spot. I think I'm going to have to redo the piping on the welders so that the top and bottom are joined not through the center but off to the side, so I can stick an extra welder in the middle there where that light would be. Because even moving it back, those welders are not getting it. They cannot get that light. That sucks. Yeah, so if I replace this... Wait, why am I not turning off the thing? Why is this... Oh, I didn't turn the sensor back on. Yeah, so if I replace this conveyor with a junction, the one below with a junction, and link them up, I can then get rid of this conveyor in the middle and stick a welder in there. The trials and tribulations of printers. Oh, there's no way I can easily get to that light for now, so let's just test the other parts of this. Reverse the hinge. Oh, that just worked. Oh, that's so silly. Oh my gosh, that is so silly. Oh, wow. Okay. So apparently, I can get the light built if I just nudge it with my hinge. With my landing gear. Don't know how I feel about that, but I'm gonna let it be a thing. 'Cause why not? We need to go up another, like, 4 meters. So in theory, I should be able to grind this off and it will be safe. Let's find out. While I'm standing under it. Because that's safe. Huzzah! Okay. Well... That's kind of cool. We have a successfully, if slightly dodgily printed Fort Capac. I need a way to get up to arm it, so I need some sort of ramp or something to get up to those stairs, which I might well just build a temporary simple version of, and then I'll have some sort of catwalk within the welding area that I can walk to from the control room as the final design. There we go. There's our dancing Capac. We've got our script. And our out of ammo light's incomplete. No! Ah! That's irritating. Okay, we do need to redo the welding apparatus. Because I was welding super, super slow, but those lights are just right in the wrong spot. And I think a welder in that top row dead center will fix all that problem. So I do have to do that. That's okay. We can do that. We just need to get some ammo in here. And remember that I do have to fix the ammo light on this particular one. I'm leaning towards just putting 10 cases. I probably don't want to have to rearm them too often, so I'll put 20 into the cargo container. If it wasn't so cumbersome, I'd totally want to run an inventory script that stopped the Gatling turret from pulling more than just a couple of cases of ammo. Yeah, 12's a bit much. Come on. Ammunition in. Discovery of other flaw in welder design. Done. So I have to remodel the welders and get that center row one in. How am I going to get up there and do all that? Well, today I did a lot of measure, never cut forever. At least when I was placing down this welder array last time, I did make it so that I had some flexibility in how I could arrange the welders. By having the piston attached straight to a conveyor instead of a welder, it meant that I could adjust that side of things. I had a bit more control, and hopefully that's going to be the difference between this not working and hopefully now working. So, welders. We've got our Fort Capac welders, and we need to add this one to the group and save. And hopefully it'll turn on when I leave the sensor area. Can I see it on? I can see it on. Cool. I'm hoping that that welder will be enough to get the ammo low light. Well, ammo out light. Now I just need to build a giant building around this, as well as a giant set of hangar doors above it. Oy. That's going to be some work. I just don't know how far things are going to be from all of it and how big this thing gets to be. It's a big building. Definitely not going to try and pressurize the printer area, but we'll need to have an airlock before I enter it so that I can have the control room pressurized. Just had a moment of, how did voxels get up here? And then I remembered I put snow up here when I was decorating. Just thought I'd do some repairs while I wait for dawn to go and deliver this first Fort Capac. I was also trying to think about where up here I could possibly fit a rotor turret with a bunch of spotlights on it. Or a spotlight on it that I can slave to one of these other turrets, because I think it'd be kind of nice to get that onto my, well, it was something that I was planning on doing ages ago, so I think I should try and do it. I'm not sure where to go though. Could just thicken up a spot here and then pop a hinge and rotor on top of that. There's also just enough room between these turbines that I could put one, say, I can start with a rotor. Go with a rotor onto a small rotor part. And then pop a small hinge on top of that with a spotlight on it. I'll have to look into... I can't remember what I need to have on the end of the rotor for the turret slaving script, so I'll look into that. But this is where I reckon I'll set up 2 of them. And once I've set up 2 of them, I should be able to fairly quickly set up more. The idea of these are that since I've got the high-powered spotlight, these will be able to reach about 2/3 of the range of a turret at 480 meters. So it's actually something significant. And there's a much higher chance then that if I get attacked by a Reaver like before, I'll be able to see it, even if it's at night, which I think would be cool. Plus, if they're slaved to a turret that's moving normally, I think they move with it, maybe? Which I think would look kind of cool, having searchlights moving around somewhat randomly through the night. I hope it works that way. If it doesn't, oh well. It'll still look cool having searchlights on the top of the base. Unfortunately, I can't put something like this on a Fort Capac because you can't project subgrids without plugins, so I wouldn't be able to print it off. I'd have to manually add one every single time, which... major hassle. I figure at least if I put the bases of these up here, I'm less likely to forget them for the next 6 months, since it was right at the start that I talked about adding these search spotlights. Searchy, dead batteries. Goofy, dead batteries. Parachutey thingy for trying to capture enemy ship. Dead batteries. Come on, the sky's lightning. I want my daylight. I suppose I can grind down this thing over here. I did get a comment suggesting that I should turn this into a construction project that hadn't been finished, but I have dreams of making this area a proper parking setup with, you know, actual spots for me to park vehicles that are somewhat protected. So I'm going to need this space. Now I really have to hope that when I grab that turbine, this whole thing doesn't clang out. So there's a definite possibility of that happening with the way that it's hooked up to the base. It does stress me out just a little bit that it could happen, because that'll take the panini with it. Okay. Sun rising. Get ready to unlock in case this goes bad. And locked. Seem to be okay. Alright, I'm okay. Ship K. Terminal. Fort Capac lock. Unlock. And we left. And we're away. Okay. That was slightly hair-raising, but that worked. I'm flying away with an armed Fort Capac. Brilliant. Let's take it over where the other ones are. Start building a circle of these around my base, and then I will build lines of them to everywhere that I travel to, like to where my survival kit is, and all the way to Steve's hole in the wall. Let's see how hard this is to place in somewhat darkness, because the sun hasn't cleared those trees yet. It's a slightly different design to the old one. I think it works though. The delivery method and building method is certainly a lot more efficient. There we go, we're locked. The main thing for me is to get the stairs close to the ground. Doesn't really matter if the rest of it's hovering. I know it looks weird, but it's fine. And I unlock. I can fly down. What I might do for this one, I just lock myself to the ground and land. So what I should have done when I was back at the base is converted this to be a... converted the script that's running on the base so that instead of using the light that isn't there, just turn on the front light and I'll make it red. Because that should be visible enough. There we go. And that'll work. Won't be as obvious as the very large range that's on the... well, the double radius that's on the interior light, but it'll still work. And just to confirm that on Omicron this is gaining power, let's have a look at the battery. Fully recharged in a day. Perfect. Yeah, not using a lot of power. So we have a Fort Capac printer that works a lot better than the one that I tried to make last time. A lot better. And the Fort Capac design I am pretty settled on now. There might be a couple of extra little tweaks that I'll do like I did today, but this is pretty much it. This thing works, this thing's printable, it's what I want. Next time I'm going to make a whole bunch of them, but I think the bulk of the time is going to be working out the roof mechanism for my printed building. The idea I have at the moment is to have 2 doors hinge up and then slide down into the building. As we saw, when I grabbed this with the panini, I kind of got kicked off to the side when I unlocked. And I think I need to make sure that I've got plenty of clearance so that if that happens when I've got the doors there, I'm not going to smack into them. Because I think I would have. And so that's why I need this design where the doors come down and slot into the building. And I hope I can make that work. That's not the only thing coming in the next week. Coming in the next week, we are starting Wrong Way Up. With my sense of direction, you know it's going to be fun. So there's all that and plenty more to come. And I will see you then.